Welcome to the second module in our self-guided series on Laudato Si. In the last session, we talked about the song of creation and the gift that creation is to us. Hopefully, before you started this session, you were able to spend some time in nature, lingering, listening, and loving. And so today, what we're going to talk about is the cry of creation, both the cry of the natural world and the cry of those who are poor and vulnerable. So we're going to begin with a reflection on the cry of the earth, the cry of the natural world. So I want you to pause this video for about 5 minutes and spend some time journaling about the questions that you see on the screen. Think about how you have been impacted by climate change. You don't have to respond to all of these questions, just whichever one you're drawn to, feel free to write about that. But consider, when was the first time you learned about climate change? Have, there been any extreme weather events that have impacted you, people you love, or maybe places you love? And consider whether climate change and these, disastrous climate events, these weather disasters, whether they have had any impact on how you think about and plan for the future. So again, I just invite you to pause this video for about 5 minutes and just spend some time journaling about the ways that climate change and disasters in the natural world have impacted you and your life. And when you're done, you can hit play. So now we're going to spend some time, now that we've reflected on the cry of the earth, the cry of the natural world, we're going to spend some time thinking about the cry of those who are poor and vulnerable. And we're going to do that by watching a video from Catholic Relief Services about a community in Bolivia that has suffered greatly due to climate change, even though they have contributed very little to climate change themselves. So I invite you, as you watch this video, to, jot down anything that stands out to you. We'll take a little bit of time in reflection on the video after we watch it.
Esto es que ha sido parte del lago Popó. Este lugar estaba cubierto de 3 metros de agua más o menos, hasta que vemos hoy en el día que no hay nada de espejo de agua, todo ha quedado.
Lake Popo was the second largest lake in Bolivia after Lake Titicaca, and Lake Popo has now disappeared. Bolivia, on the continent of South America, is the poorest. It has the highest indigenous population, and unfortunately within that population, it has the highest rank, highest statistics of poverty and inequality.
Los peces que quedaron en el lodo y finalmente ahí ha perecido todo. Sin embargo, el día de hoy vemos que estamos en un lugar salitrosa, pero como ex pescadores estamos aquí vivos.
Tenemos desastre natural. No hay lluvia a veces hay helada. Entonces nos friegan nuestras siembras. Entonces no vamos a tener cosecha.
Hay otros países industrializados que tienen fábricas tremendas que contaminan el ambiente. Deben ver también para poder buscar alternativas de solución. No podemos seguir provocando hasta la destrucción de la naturaleza.
Bolivia only contributes to 0.04% of global emissions. So their footprint in contributing to climate change is very, very minimal.
Este año CRS nos ayudó, hace llegar a nuestro domicilio, llega por cañería. O consumo humano sí tenemos hoy, pero para el ganado igual no hay agua.
Un 93% viene agua de fuente superficial y un 7% viene agua de fuente subterránea, ¿no? Las fuentes superficiales vienen de las cuencas, precipitaciones de lluvia, descubrimientos de glaciares. Los glaciares en nuestra región están en la región tropical del globo terráqueo, ¿no? Entonces, por el calentamiento global que se da, tienden a desaparecer, ¿no? Por el incremento de temperatura. Existen todavía algunos glaciares, ¿no? Pensamos unas decenas de años más que van a ir también desapareciendo, ¿no?
Pachamama es nuestra tierra donde estamos nosotros y donde vivimos. Y la Pachamama es cuidar nuestra tierra y de acuerdo a nuestros usos y costumbres.
So the Pachamama is also that you give and then you take. At the inaugurations for our water system project, there is always a moment where there is a recognition of Pachamama and giving back.
Este es mi bote donde yo he trabajado, me ha dado sustento para la alimentación. Nuestros abuelos, nuestros papás seguro han sobrevivido y nosotros estamos afrontando en ese sentido para poder sobrevivir, pero en condiciones con desventajas enormes, cosa que podemos sobrevivir. No había que morir, había que luchar en la vida.
The indigenous of Bolivia are not contributing to climate change. They don't drive cars. They don't fly in airplanes. They don't run factories. But they are the ones that are suffering the most. I think that the way that they approach their life is really a testament to the human will.
In Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis writes, quote, "Some parts of our human family, it appears, can be readily sacrificed for the sake of others who are considered worthy of a carefree existence." I want you to take some time and consider this quote alongside of the video that we just watched. I invite you again to pause this video for about 5 minutes and spend some time journaling about this question. You know, what ways might this quote apply to the video that we just watched, to the community in Bolivia that we just encountered? How might the quote apply to us in the United States? So I invite you to pause the video, spend about 5 minutes or so journaling about this, and then restart the video when you're ready. Okay, so now that we've talked about the cry of the earth, the cry of the natural world, and the cry of those who are living in poverty and who have been marginalized, we're going to bring things together. Hopefully, you noticed in that video about the community in Bolivia that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are inextricably linked. The earth is suffering, and that causes humans to suffer. And the degradation that nations like the United States are causing through climate change is hurting not just the earth, but also our sisters and brothers around the world. And as we mentioned in the first session, this is one of the most important and prominent themes in Laudato Si, this concept of integral ecology. The assertion and the worldview that everything is interconnected, that you cannot address the cry of the earth without also addressing the cry of those who are vulnerable. So we're going to watch what I think is a really excellent video on the concept of integral ecology. And I invite you, as you watch again, to just jot down anything that stands out to you, any takeaways that you want to remember. All right.
The global ecological crisis that we find ourselves in today presents not only one of the biggest threats to the human family, but also to all life on Earth. The ecological crisis is made up of a wide assortment of interconnected problems, ranging from climate change to biodiversity loss, from resource depletion to air pollution, from soil degradation to plastic pollution, plus many more. All these crises each pose significant challenges to the global family, not only in their complexity, but also in scale. Faced with this global and urgent threat, many believe that we can engineer our way out of this crisis. After all, technology and the Industrial Revolution got us into this mess, therefore technology and human ingenuity can get us out of it. But trying to solve the ecological crisis by developing new technical solutions can only treat the symptoms, not the cause. For the crisis we now face, given its complexity and interconnectedness, demands a new approach if we're to treat its roots. This requires a new way of seeing, thinking, and acting. The Catholic Church calls this integral ecology, and this approach offers a profound insight into how we can tackle the ecological crisis in an integrated way. When we view the crisis through the lens of integral ecology, rather than seeing each discrete problem in isolation, we begin to see that everything is deeply interconnected. This integrated view reveals a deeper insight. Not only are the ecological problems interconnected, but there is also an interconnection between the ecological crisis and the human crisis. For the human crisis, just like the ecological one, is made up of a wide range of issues affecting the human family, from extreme poverty to social inequality, from modern slavery to human trafficking, from poor working conditions to mass migration, and many more. Through the lens of integral ecology, we can see that we are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis, which is both human and environmental. Or, to put it another way, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are the same cry. Everything is interconnected. The insatiable desire for economic growth drives the production and market for ever cheaper consumer goods, which drives the depletion of Earth's natural resources and is also a driver for cheap labour, which drives poor working conditions, which drives weak environmental standards, which drives pollution, which drives greenhouse emissions, which drives climate change. All of these issues are interconnected, and each problem cannot be solved without tackling the others. Integral ecology shows us that the ecological crisis is not simply a series of problems to be fixed, but rather is a symptom of something that goes much deeper. Because at the heart of the ecological crisis lies a deep human and spiritual crisis, in that we have forgotten who we are and where we have come from. Nature is not something separate from ourselves or a mere setting in which we live, but rather we are part of nature, included in it and in constant interaction with it. We have forgotten that we ourselves are dust of the earth. Our very bodies are made up of her elements. We breathe her air and we receive life and refreshment from her waters. Just as ecology is the relationship of living organisms and their environment, we cannot regard ourselves as separate or disconnected with the ecosystems in which we live. Just as the Earth's ecosystems have worked harmoniously for millions of years, we too are part of a complex network of interconnected relationships that we may never fully comprehend or understand. When we forget where we belong, we behave as lords and masters over creation, entitled to plunder her at will. Creation is viewed simply as an object to exploit. And that same mindset of domination is how we treat each other. When we view reality through the lens of integral ecology, we can see how all creation is a web of life that includes human and social dimensions. By understanding where we belong and our interconnectedness within the ecosystems that sustain us, we will no longer see God's creation as an object there simply to serve our needs, but rather we come to a deeper understanding of our interdependence and our place of belonging within the delicate web of life. And by doing so, we can start to care for each other as well as the earth, our common home. And given the urgency of our current situation, this new way of thinking and acting is needed now more than ever.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. I think there's so much packed into it, and it's really an excellent explanation not only of integral ecology, but also of the whole call of Laudato Si to recognize our place as a created creature, that we are all interconnected, that we are made of dust, that we and the natural world are all made of the same thing. And we are all God's beloved creation. So I invite you before the next session to spend a little bit more time reflecting on this concept of integral ecology. I invite you to, when you're scrolling through the news or watching the news, however you consume your news, to stop and consider when you're reading an article or looking at a headline, how is that headline connected to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor? Try to challenge yourself to see the connections behind the realities in our world today, behind the suffering that's in our world today, and see how it's all interconnected socially and environmentally. All right, that's it for this session, and I look forward to seeing you for our third and final module.